Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
Hetmyer Roach, and I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed you are, people. Indeed you are. Welcome to another live Caribbean Cricket Podcast call-in show. I'm your co-host of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, Machel St. Patrick Hewitt. People, I can't believe it. Santokie has returned from his 80 days around the world trip. No one has seen this guy in time. But he is back, people. Before I bring my co-host Santokie Nikhil on, as ever, call-in show. We'll put the link in the chat soon. But let me just put the disclaimer out there from now. The current time in the UK is 10:05. You lot are not making us go to bed at midnight tonight. We got things to do, people to see, beds to go to, etc. So this can't run for 2 hours like last time. I know everyone is upset. I know we're emotional, but it can't run for 2 hours. But anyways, without any further ado, let me bring on my partner in crime, Santokie. Yes, Santokie. 80 days around the world, yeah? Where you been?
Listen, Machel, you really dragged me back for this, you know? This therapy session, but it's going to be stressful.
Listen, the people have been calling for you. For every show we've done so far, everyone keeps saying, where's Santokie? And I'm like, boy, someone's going to have to send out a carrier pigeon to try find Santokie. We don't know where in the world you are at any point in time.
You know what? I knew this deep in my soul this would happen. That's why I booked the traveling, man. I thought, let me get some headspace while West Indies crash out at the World Cup. But I'm here. I'm ready. Opinions are going to be flying about. Emotions are going to be riding high, Mash. But we're here. We need to talk about it. West Indies are out of the T20 World Cup, and we're going to dissect it all.
For sure. So without any further ado, people, I mean, there's 56 of you already in the live. On the one we did on whenever we beat Zimbabwe, we got up to 220 something in the live. So let me just set the standard from now. Press like, share this, subscribe, follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. You'll see the ticker tape at the bottom as to where to find us at Carib Cricket. If you are going to come on the live and chat, we are gonna keep them to a minimum. I know everyone's got a lot to say, but we are gonna keep it. So we're gonna try and cut everyone off at a certain point, just so that those who do want to come on get a chance to say what they want to say before we cut off the live completely. But as Santokie says, a lot to say, people. Last bit of house rules and admin. So Santokie and I recorded 2 episodes of West Indies on 99.94 earlier today. One should definitely be out tomorrow, and that is our basically what we think about the World Cup exit. And then this other one is probably going to be out on Tuesday or Wednesday, and that will be us deep diving on Nicholas Pooran and his captaincy. So do look out for those episodes, which are due to come out both next week and then a few more, so on and so forth. If you're new to this and you don't know what West Indies on 99.94 is, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, all the podcast apps, the 99.94 app. Go and listen to that show. But anyway, Santokie, before we bring people on, let's have a quick little chat again, so that people kind of get where we're coming from. The World Cup exit, Santokie, surprised or not surprised?
Not surprised. I mean, we said we'd expect West Indies to probably lose one game out of the 3. It was probably surprising the manner in which they lost to Scotland and Ireland. They were both pretty emphatic. As Phil Simmons said, we were outplayed in all departments. But overall, when you look at the build up to this tournament and kind of how we've prepared for it over the past few years and where our T20 cricket is going, it shouldn't be a massive shock to anyone that we've crashed out in these first round qualifiers for the main stage. And I mean, even if we did manage to snake through to the Super 12, we would have taken licks there. We would have lost probably all but 1 or 2 games. So if anything, this has saved us a lot of stress. But overall, Mash, I can't say I'm surprised that we've crashed out. Yourself?
No, not at all. Not in the slightest. I always thought that it would be a massive task to try and get out of the qualifiers. We spent the whole summer watching this side struggle to win T20 games. So I don't just say this to say this, but I genuinely couldn't believe people who were surprised by the nature of the defeats. I think people are shocked. I think a big part of the shock for people was they still see, I think some fans still see Scotland, Ireland, and Zimbabwe as being lesser than us. Whereas I think you and I see them as equal to us. This isn't the only thing that's GOAT about our T20 side is the name West Indies, but everything else is basically substandard. We don't have established international world beaters in the T20 format. We've got some talented players, but we don't have any regular match winners. We basically don't have any consistent batters at all in our T20 side. Whereas all the top nations do. We aren't a top nation. And if you don't believe we're a top nation in T20s, then you shouldn't have been surprised that Zimbabwe, Scotland, and Ireland basically gave us cut ass throughout the whole competition. So it is what it is for me. And obviously Santokie again, I can see. Oh, sorry, Harris. I saw your comment, by the way. Let me just bring it up because it was super chat comment. I brought it up earlier on, but Santokie and I were chatting. Thank you for the super chat, Harris. Much appreciated. We feel your pain, Harris. What an amazing match between Pakistan and India earlier on. And actually, Santokie, even if we just use it as an example, some of the quality of what was going on in that match, we have no business being in the Super 12. Absolutely no business even being there. You see the quality in that, and you kind of see how the gulf between us and the proper, like the good sides in the competition.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think, like I said, it saved us a lot of stress, and a lot of people are cussing out, but essentially this was 95% of the best talent we currently have in the region. Obviously, you could say Sunil Narayan, Shimron, Hetmyer should have been in the squads, but fundamentally, this is the best talent we've got, and this is sort of the level they can perform at. So, as much, to be honest, most of the comments I've seen are from people outside of the region who are shocked. I think if you haven't been following West Indies cricket closely, it might come to a shock to you because you're still thinking of the brand West Indies and they're synonymous with T20 cricket. But anyone who's been closely studying West Indies cricket, even for the past year, could have probably seen this coming just with everything that's been going on building up towards this World Cup.
Do you know something we didn't talk about? When we recorded West Indies on 99.94 earlier today, there was one name I meant to throw out to you and I didn't because I was like, this is going to elongate the conversation. But we can do it on the live, Santokie. Hetmyer. And let me tell you why I want to talk about Let me tell you why I want to talk about Hetmyer. The only thing I will say about Hetmyer is that guy pulled out on the eve of the tournament. And I'm still saying we would have not made it through, but I do think it bears mentioning that a guy who was slotted in to be a certain starter in our batting lineup pulled out just before we were due to leave to go to Australia. Now, some people say, well, we should have been able to get over Hetmyer's absence and find a way to get through anyway. But do you remember when we did I think we did an episode after when Hetmyer pulled out, and we were talking about it, and we basically said that it's not about Hetmyer pulling out per se. It's about what that does to preparation for the tournament. You have a guy locked in to play in your engine room, and then he just says, boy, I'm not going. So in some capacity, we had to rethink about what we were going to do. So like, I'm not blaming him per se. I'm just saying that it brought a level of disruption that I'm not certain people fully appreciate.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And if you look at the last game against Ireland, essentially we played all four of our openers as the top four. We went with obviously Mayers, Charles, Lewis, King as the top four. And you can't imagine, obviously, Hetmyer would have slotted into that top four. So we were essentially scrambling for ideas. We tried out Shamar Brooks, and then we ended up with that top four. So it obviously messed up the plans, and that can't be discredited. One thing is, Shimron Hetmyer, I don't think him being in the 11 would have made a massive difference. Obviously, some people can say, Hetmyer's a world-class player, but we do have some world-class players in the side. I just think the cohesiveness and sort of the tactics weren't right, and I don't think Hetmyer would have made truly a massive difference. If anything, he's boosted his own personal reputation by not being associated with this West Indies side. His stock is still high because people are thinking, oh, if Hetmyer was there, he could have done, West Indies could have done well, when in actual fact, I don't think he would have, but the perception will be that they were lacking a Hetmyer. So his own personal stock has ironically probably gone up by him not being associated with this campaign.
If we can say that about Hetmyer, then let me throw this in. Were we foolish? It's all hindsight now. And big up the 84 of you who are in the live. Remember, like the video. Anyone who can see how many likes we've got at the moment, put that in the chat. The last video we did, people, we got up to 202 likes. Big up the likes. Helps the algorithms and all that. Share, subscribe. But that's a Hetmyer argument, Santokie. What about this, though? And it's all hindsight. Should we have done whatever we needed to get Dre Russ and Sunil Narayan in the squad? And hear me out. I'm not saying yes, by the way. I'm just coming with arguments. Hear me out. The one thing this squad didn't have was any real top level experience. Should we have tried whatever we could have done to get those two in?
Narayan, yeah. I'd say Narayan, we should have thrown everything out there. For Desmond Haynes to say he's not sure where Narayan's mind is at, and Pooran's reached out to him WhatsApp, it didn't seem that they put in that much effort into trying to convince him to play in this World Cup campaign. Obviously, we don't know what's been going on with Cricket West Indies and Narayan for the past 2-3 years. Their relationship may be soured. But for me, when you've got someone like Narayan, a world-class spinner, the experience, he could also come in at the top of the order and pinch hit some crucial runs as well. When you've got someone like that, to leave him in the sidelines without any obvious reason, Narayan obviously didn't come out and say he wasn't playing for West Indies on record. Desmond Haynes didn't give a clear answer as to why Narayan wasn't really picked for the squad. It all seemed a bit ambiguous. So I think when you've got a player of that caliber, unless one party says, no, this player is definitely not playing for this reason, if you leave it up with this amount of lack of clarity, it just doesn't sit right with me, especially when he's one of the few world-class players we do have left and seemingly available. Dre Russ is a bit different. I think Dre Russ, obviously, his form's been a bit inconsistent, so I can see why, based on his position as an all-rounder, when we've got so many all-rounders in the side, they could have potentially dropped him. But I would have taken him for that experience, as you say, Mash. The experience was priceless, as it's shown in our lack of experience in Australia. We just needed someone who had been there before and knew what they were doing to sort of guide everyone else.
Yes, there's a couple of people in the comments saying, no, we shouldn't have taken them, and so on and so forth. And my counter to that is very simple. Sunil Narayan is one of the few bowlers in the region, if not the only bowler, who you can basically rely to go 4 overs, 1 for 15. How many other bowlers in the region? We had flipping Gareth Delaney going 4 overs, 3 for 16. So Sunil Narayan is the only bowler in the entire region who can guarantee doing something like that to opposition. So I don't buy people saying Narayan wouldn't have offered anything. Put
it this way, if Narayan's playing against Ireland, they're not hitting 70 after the first 7 overs, basically.
Yeah, basically.
That's the impact he makes.
His sheer name alone means he gets respect, and people have to dot ball out the over to him because they're worried about what he may or may not do. So Dre Russ, I'm willing to hear the argument about not bringing him, but fundamentally, I'm not even making the point about the point I'm making, in case people are lost here, isn't they should definitely have been there. My wider point is there was no experience in the side. None. We went from 2021 with experience, which didn't work either. But my point being, we had 0 experience. And actually, if we're going to look at both World Cups, Santokie, the World Cup that got the cuss out last year, where everyone said, don't take those old guys, those guys won 1 game in the main stage of the competition. Admittedly, they didn't have to qualify. But the point is, we won 1 game, Santokie, in the qualifying stage. We didn't even get to the main stage to win 1 game against Bangladesh. We won 1 in qualifying. So if we're going to weigh up World Cups, this one with the so-called younger guys, with the so-called players that everybody was asking for the last World Cup, they just came to this one and flopped anyway in an easier stage of the competition. If people don't want to just look at the facts, people. Sometimes just look at the facts. The quality's not there. If I keep saying this phrase, if somebody shows you over and over again, and I'm talking purely about the batters here, if they show you over and over and over again that they can't bat, at some point you have to pay attention. At some point you have to pay attention and think, maybe they actually aren't consistent. They're not consistent. That's just them. That is just them as players. And I feel like as fans, we're struggling to get to that point of acceptance that this is just it. Like, and now it comes to the next stage of the cuss out, Santokie. Where is it? Where is it? Who was it? He did a one. Let me find it, Santokie. 1 second.
Hold on. A few people are saying Chemo Paul should have got picked. Chemo Paul got injured.
Paul, you know, come on, man. Anyways, Henry Inc says. Henry Inc with a super chat says everyone from Skerrit to the ground staff in the Caribbean needs to go.
Listen, there's a cost of living crisis out here, and Henry Inks calling for mass redundancies across the board. You know what have the ground staff done?
Listen, I mean, I don't want to give away what we've discussed on the West Indies on 99.94 episode, but very quickly, Santokie, just give yes or no answers with no explanation, unless people bring it up later on in the show. Nicholas Pooran, keep as captain or not as captain?
Keep.
Phil Simmons, sack as head coach or not as head coach?
No.
Right. So there you go, people. We're not going to go into detail because we want you to watch the episode we did, because we did go into detail in the episode. But I'll back what Santokie's saying. Keep Nicholas Pooran as captain. And Santokie's saying Phil Simmons will have to carry the can for what's happened in these particular.
A lot of people might say, "Oh, you guys are defending cricket West Indies right down to the very end." But we'll probably explain it here. But it goes beyond just individuals. There's obviously systematic, wider issues which need to be addressed. And I don't think sacking an individual, whilst it might make people feel happy that someone's been held accountable, it's not going to change results unless there's a massive overhaul of how we develop cricketers in the region.
Yeah, if Phil does go, and I do think he's going to go because someone's going to have to carry the blame, right? But if Phil does go, my only hope is that we're sensible and we try to convince Phil to stay as the test coach. That under every rational metric, the test team is better. And this is why when people say, "Oh, Phil out," I always look to see who's actually showing any nuance, because it's not Phil out, because the test team licked down Bangladesh home and away, licked down England at home, and drew with Pakistan at home. This is all in the last year and a bit. So it's anyone who just goes, Phil Simmons out, no, you better show some nuance to your argument, because it don't work like that. Because it would be better if you specifically said, Phil not as white ball coach, but keep him as red, because there's no justifiable reason to remove Phil as the test coach. None whatsoever. Even when we get licked down by Australia in the test series, there's still no justifiable reason to remove Phil. I think
one thing we have to consider, and me and you have talked about it privately, Machel, is obviously next year is the Cricket West Indies elections, early next year. Obviously, Dr. Kishore Shallow will probably be running for president. But this gives a lot of leverage to any opposition candidates. Obviously, the World Cup performances under the Skerrit administration. So this might also force a hand from the administration to make those changes as like a superficial way of showing they're trying to address it ahead of the election. So there's a lot of factors at play here.
So Winston, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Winston says, sack the captain and the coach. Enough of this already. Then he continues, how long do we, the Caribbean people, have to put up with this crap? So Winston, just for me to say to you, because I find these comments frustrating, what do you think a new captain and coach is going to do? Right? So here's my example of why I'm making this point, Winston. When Jason Holder was captain of the ODI side between 2015 and 2019, we won 0 series in ODI cricket for 4 years. We sacked Jason Holder as captain, and we are still useless at ODI cricket. What is it that you lot don't see about this stuff? We can, don't get me wrong, sack Pooran if we must sack Pooran. But if you lot genuinely believe things are going to improve, what have you been watching for the last 20 years? Nothing changes with a new captain. Nothing. So you lot are saying sack Pooran after 6 months as captain. Nothing ain't changing. What's wrong with you lot, though? What's wrong with you lot? Come on, man. Are you lot studying up West Indies cricket, or you're not studying up? And Javon Pollard was decent, and then they came for him. And I still maintain this. When Pollard left in March, loads of you who are currently in this chat right now were the same people saying sack Pollard as West Indies T20 and ODI captain. He's not good enough. Now look, we can't even get to the second round of the T20 World Cup. You lot are the same people who are forever saying sack, and expecting things to change in West Indies cricket. And I don't want to hear no one say to me, I never said that about Pollard. Enough of you said it. Enough of you said Pollard's the reason he needs to go. He don't carry himself properly. He's not helping our cricket. So now what? So now what? The same person you wanted to replace Pollard was Pooran. So now what? Sack. Nothing ain't changing. That doesn't mean people shouldn't be sacked, but don't expect anything to change. At best, a 0.5% marginal gain at best, because that's the story of West Indies cricket. Sorry, Santokie, I had to get that off my chest, because I'm tired. I'm tired of the sack talk. Like that's changing anything in West Indies cricket. Sack, we've been losing non-stop for 20 years, and people think sack will change anything. You lot make me tired, man. Make me tired. Anyway, go on.
If you ask people to name 5 players who they think they could add to this squad to improve West Indies team, no one can even name 5. Maybe 1 or 2. Like I said, this is the squad you've got to work with. No, if you made Rodman Powell captain tomorrow and we played a bilateral series against Australia, we'll still lick 3-0. It won't make a difference because you've got the same quality of players.
Ian James says sack until we get it right. Well, we're going to sack till there's no one left to pick. If we keep sacking, there'll be me and Santokie who end up as the coaches of West Indies. But as you say, and actually, let's put that question to people, right? So, of this squad, there were 15 players picked in this squad. Everybody hand on heart would agree that at least 10 or 11 of them are the best T20 players in the region. So you lot put 5 players in the chat right now who you genuinely believe would make this West Indies T20 side any better than it already is. Name 5. I can only name 1 for sure, and that's Fabian Allen. But then I said he should have been in the squad from the get-go. But I see you lot saying players like Chemo Paul. That's how I know you lot ain't talking sense. Because he ain't doing nothing to make this squad any better. He's just the same standard. Name 5 players that make this squad better. And if anyone puts Romario Shepherd, I'm blocking you for the rest of this conversation. I'm just blocking you. In fact, I'm kicking you out the chat. I'm going to report you to YouTube.
We'll be waiting a long time. I don't think anyone's got the names now. They ain't got the answers.
I'm waiting. Pills has put Fabian. I'm waiting to see who people put. 1 name is all I've seen so far, Fabian Allen. I said 5 people. Give me 5 better T20 players. 5. Supernova says Hetty, but he don't want to get on a plane, so what's the point? Supernova says Sherfane Rutherford. Sherfane Rutherford, if I release what he got on that fitness test, you lot will understand why he can never play for West Indies cricket, West Indies team.
We got someone. Someone's come up with 5, KB, Trinidad and Tobago. Here we go.
Allen, I knew it. See, Romario Shepherd. That's why I know. Devon Thomas. Man said Devon Thomas. Devon Thomas. Drake. I'm willing to hear, but even then, he's the same standard. Romario Shepherd. Obviously, you're not serious. Fabian, yes. Rakeem, yes. But then, who are you replacing as an opener? We already have 4 in the squad. So who would you be replacing with Rakeem?
The thing is, all right. King and Mayer scored more than Jimbo in CPL. They were more attacking. So obviously, Jimbo had a good CPL, but King and Mayers performed better, and they struggled in Australia. So there's nothing to suggest Jimbo would have been able to go to Australia and put up anything different. So I don't think he's a better replacement. There could be a case argument that you could try and fit him into the 11, but I don't think he's a better option than what we currently have. Fabian Allen, as we said, is the one player we would. Romario Shepherd, Mash, where do we even want to talk about Romario Shepherd?
No, Nikhil is in the chat, so obviously we're going to have to bring him on. But Nikhil says put Rakeem in, and I agree for this reason, because we had no off-spinner. That I agree with that point. That point I do agree. But where in the batting lineup would you play Rakeem then, Nikhil? Because if you play Rakeem, who I thought at least deserved to be in the conversation, you can't take one of Kyle Mayers, Brandon King, Johnson Charles, Evan Lewis. That's the only problem with the Raheem argument. But
you
generally,
you got to pull up Ian James's latest comment. You know.
Yeah. No, in fairness, Ian, I take it back. I didn't realize you meant it in levity.
Reputation out here.
Okay, Avery gives me 5. He says Hetty, Fabian, Kevin Sinclair, Shay Hope.
Oh, Shay Hope. Bro, Machel, you pulled me back from holiday for this, you know.
I'm tired. Tired of West Indies, you know. I'm tired of everybody. I'm tired of all of you lot, man. I'm tired of this. Santokie came back early from his holiday for this. What are you not doing out here?
Shay Hope's the saviour for West Indies T20 side.
But the key thing is, though, there is a genuine point being made about this. Everyone is, I think everyone's basically putting 5 names, but I think all of you, hand on heart, would say, boy, their point's right, you know. We don't have no one. We don't have anyone. This is it. This is it, people. So all the cussing we're doing, this is all we've got. This is it. This is what T20 cricket has come to. And actually, so on the episode we've recorded for 99.94, I'm just going to wheel up a point that Santokie and I made, which is that I don't know how old anybody is in the chat, but we basically feel sorry for the generation that is coming up behind me and Santokie, because Santokie and I will always know that at least we lived through West Indies T20 legacy. So we never saw us be good in tests. That was for my dad's generation. They saw us dominate in the test and the ODI arena. We never saw that, but we had the T20 era, and we can say to the youngers, boy, we won 2 World Cups in T20 cricket. You see, you youngers who are coming up behind us, you're never going to see us do anything ever again. We're done. We're finished out here. We're completely finished. Santokie, you and I are going to be them uncles in 20 years' time going, boy, back in my day. We won T20 cricket, you know. You don't know how good it used to be. We're finished out here. But anyways, let me put the link in the chat to see who wants to come on. 1 second. Let me find this link. Right. So anybody who wants to come on the live, people, just put in the link in the chat now. Right. Yeah.
Still can't believe man said Shy Hope, you know.
Roy says we're uncles already. Allow me, man. I am actually an uncle, though. That's true. But still,
I'm not. Wait, get Roy on the show, man. Cussing me up.
Yeah, so link in the chat. Where's Nikhil? Nikhil, press the link. Faraz is saying I need to send him the link on Instagram. Faraz, you want me to multitask and send links everywhere? Come on, man. 1 second. Let me try to do this. Where is Nikhil? Nikhil, you coming on or not? 1 second. Let me. We've got plenty of people come in the background, just waiting for all of you who are coming on. Just add up the link, and then we can just go from there. So I know, so I get an idea of how many people we have to work for in there, for how many minutes we can give people. Nikhil's coming on first, though. People, he gets fast track pass, because, with respect, it's the great Nikhil Uttamchandani, and his agent texted us and said, if Nikhil's here, he has to come on first. So you know how that goes already. Can't mess with Nikhil's agent out here. Luckily, Nikhil doesn't charge us when he comes on here. Never sends us an invoice for this, so we're good. Trying to send us that Sportsmats invoice. Allow us, Nikhil.
I think, Mash, while we're waiting for Nikhil, what we talked about on our 99.94 episode, this will obviously strengthen the cries for a domestic T20 league to sort of feed into CPL to develop players, because unless there is a exclusively domestic T20 tournament, you're not going to see players develop. Obviously, CPL, there's only 6 franchises, limited spaces for local players. You're going to need something to develop those younger players to get ready for the T20 format. So I think the strength of that case for the T20 domestic tournament, we've already seen Pollard and Holder call for it. I think it will dramatically increase after this World Cup performance.
Yeah, no, it has to be. And I think it's weird because people. I mean, sometimes we get criticized from people to say, "Oh, you try and defend this, try and defend that." Listen, we've done stuff for CPL. We've done some work for them. We covered all of their matches this year. But I would actually, objectively speaking, I would argue that CPL isn't enough. It's not enough because let me use an example. Let me pick a young player. Okay, so here we go. Because Nikhil's about to come on, I'm going to use Barbados as an example, right? The Barbados Royals this year had Joshua Bishop in their squad, right? I don't know how many games Joshua played. I think it was maybe 3, maybe 4 at best. And I think he was probably like an emerging player. So he would have played 3 or 4. Is Joshua Bishop benefiting from getting 3 or 4 games every year in CPL, or would it be better for him for a Caribbean only, with Caribbean talent only competition? Would he get more games in that scenario and develop a lot quicker in T20s in that regard? I'm just picking a random player. But then on the flip side, just to show there is a flip side to that argument, Ramon Simmons, who only debuted for Barbados Pride in the first class season this year, he played CPL and his talent was so good, he basically played all of the matches for Barbados Royals, and now he's got the big bag to go to South Africa and play for the Pearl Royals. So the other argument is, if you're good enough, it don't matter how young you are, you'll just get in the team anyway. So there is that flip side argument to look at it.
Yeah, I think CPL's primary purpose is to highlight the talent we have in the region. We just need a tournament that can develop it. Let's take an example, Kimani Melius, who's been talked up as one of the younger players who can kind of come in as a big opener in T20 cricket. He's not at this stage in his career. He's not going to be able to hit a 6 off Rashid Khan in the CPL. He's just not at that level. Whereas if you've got a domestic tournament where he's playing local players, you can kind of gel in and kind of prepare through that. So we just need a tournament that allows our players to develop and then go into CPL where their talents can be highlighted.
Yeah, I hear that argument. Listen, let me bring Nikhil on. Nikhil, when Nikhil comes on, Santokie, I'm going to come off the screen because I need to go get some water, but just carry the conversation. Yes, Nikhil.
Santokie, man. I haven't seen you in years, man. You're taking all these vacations, bro.
How's it going, man? Long time, man.
How are you, man? What's up?
Good, man. Well, how are you feeling, man? West Indies, we're out of the World Cup. Was it a shock for you, Nikhil?
Oh, man, more than a shock. I think, obviously, we knew we weren't that good, but to not make it out of the qualifiers, I think, for me, is a real sad day in West Indies cricket. And I hear much, or I don't know if it's on Twitter saying, it's a good thing we through because we've definitely been destroyed. And while that's true, I still like to see the guys, man, and playing in the World Cup. Even for them as well, the financial benefits of playing in the World Cup are immense for anybody that knows it. So, really sad that they didn't make it through for sure.
What do you think? Do you think it was just individual performances, the coaching kind of? If you had to outline 1 or 2 reasons why you think we performed so badly, where would you kind of lay the finger?
I think execution, the way that I think we batted, I can't even call it spin because there's no balls that spun in that qualifiers. The way that we batted slow bowling, just unbelievable, man. And then even though there was intent in the middle overs looking to rotate strike and stuff, I think it's very hard to learn on the day. And we've been practicing this brand of cricket all year where we just block and look to hit sixes. At Warner Park, you get away with it. At the Darren Sammy Cricket Stadium, you get away with it. But when you go to Hobart and you have 80-meter boundaries, all of a sudden now things become difficult. But the fact that we couldn't find a way to just... I really thought... everything was stacked against us in the sense that we weren't playing good cricket. You could argue that Ireland were better than us, etc. I just thought there would be somebody that have been in this position before that would put their hand up and get us through that round. And I couldn't believe when at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning and they're watching and we're not in. I couldn't believe that we're not in the World Cup, man.
I think Phil Simmons highlighted it when he said the bowlers stood up. They did what they needed to do, but the batting was unprofessional. I think it was a disappointment. Like you said, no one could really stand up. I know Johnson Charles had 1 innings where he put together some runs, but generally no one could stand up. Kind of, you talked about execution. Where did you see anything with the captaincy? What do you make of Pooran's kind of job during the World Cup?
So obviously this is a big topic in terms of whether he should stay on or not. But in terms of his decision making, I question it in a way because, and not only Pooran, I think it comes down to the entire management. There are things that happened during this year that I just didn't see the continuity when it came to the World Cup. Let's take, for example, Brandon King and Kyle Mears. You look at their, I think it was 11 innings together, and they averaged over 30, a healthy strike rate. They started in that England series at the top of the year. And I felt like they were the two that really should go to the World Cup. Yes, you have a Johnson Charles who does well in CPL. You have Evan Lewis, etc. But I'm looking to keep what I know works together for the World Cup. Then things like Jason Holder. I mean, obviously, it's neither here nor there. Would it have made a big difference? I don't know. But I wanted to see him bowl the new ball a bit more. I was really shocked that they used him, especially in that last game, in the middle overs when, I mean, really and truly, the way that they started, you're going to lose the game. So those small things I found were a bit questionable, but I don't think that comes down to necessarily. And the only reason, I think everyone is saying, get rid of Pooran, get rid of Phil Simmons, etc. I don't think there's many better candidates for captaincy. When I look around in that T20 side at the 11 players, I don't think there's anybody that puts their hand up. Maybe a Robin Powell, he just won the CPL. Nobody stands out to me and said that's the next West Indies captain. I don't think Pooran stood out when Pollard stepped down either. But what I will say is why I personally would want Nicholas Pooran to give out the captaincy is because I look at his performances with the captaincy, and I just think it's taking a toll on him. 11 innings without a score past 25. To me, he's one of the best T20 players, and the amount of work he gets in the franchise tournaments tells you what the world thinks about him. You look at his numbers against spin, etc., and I just didn't see the usual Nicholas Pooran that we're used to. And I just wonder if it's that weight of captaincy taking a toll on. We saw it with Jason Holder when he was captain as well, where it's tough, man. I mean, with the West Indies, we see our fans right here. It is tough to be captain. So if I had to pick one reason as to, it's not necessarily for the poor performances, it would be so that I can sort of relieve that weight. He's a young man and I think has so many years of cricket to give to the West Indies.
Yeah, Santokie and I were talking about this earlier on another recording we did. And there is a danger here that I'm not sure West Indies fans fully understand. If we run Nicholas Pooran out of captaincy, I think we'll run him out of West Indies cricket altogether. Now, let me explain to you why I say that. Nicholas Pooran don't need West Indies cricket. He can just survive on the franchise circuit and pick up deal after deal after deal after deal. So when these fans, some of them, get what they want, which is to make him lose the captaincy, watch how Pooran starts saying stuff like, boy, I'm not available still. I'm going to be playing in this latest franchise tournament. When he took that captaincy, he didn't have to take it because the stress of West Indies captaincy is long. 26 years old and you're taking West Indies captaincy, knowing that all of the experienced players have left and there's no one to help you. That was always going to be a big problem. And now, 2-2's now, 6 months into the job, he's got a World Cup cut-ass on his shoulders and everyone's looking to blame him. So,
but Mash, I would be curious to know, right? Okay, let's take, for example, this morning, that India-Pakistan game. You look at what playing for your country means to people around the world. Why is it with the West Indies we always have these commitment issues? Does it come down to winning or does it come down to something more systemic, underlying, rooted from when guys are growing up before they get into the West Indies side? Because you look at the passion. I mean, guys are crying when the national anthem is being played this morning. The Indians, the Pakistani guys, you just see literally they would do anything to win that game. But yet still we can't find the same commitment.
That's because we're no good. Who wants to play for a team that can't do anything? But your point is still valid. But fundamentally, I think it boils down to each player has their own reason. And what I always say though with these players is they always want to cry. They always want to cry and say West Indies board is fighting them down in some shape or form, but we never hear their story. We never hear how the fight down has come and what's made them not play for West Indies, which is why I'm now casting a lot of skepticism about certain individuals around the West Indies team. But anyways, that's Pooran, Nikhil. Phil Simmons. What's going to happen to him, Nikhil? Or what do you believe should happen to him?
As far as I know, his contract, both him and Roddy Estwick, is up next year. I don't see him staying on as white ball coach. I agree completely with your sentiments earlier. I think the turnaround that we've seen from this West Indies side, and listen, Phil Simmons is the head of the chain, so he will get the blame and the praise. But I think there's one man that doesn't get much praise, and he deserves it. That's Roddy Estwick, West Indies bowling coach. Because I think even in the test game, the turnaround has come, and not because he's Barbadian, but just because I think when you look at the record of the bowlers, I think in T20 cricket especially, of the past, correct me if I'm wrong, Machel and Santokie, our problems used to be with the ball. It used to be that we had all the power and then no one to defend the runs. Well, yeah. And now I think even in the test game, the way he's developed Jaden Seals, the way that they've developed and allow Kemar Roach to come back in under their leadership and be that leader of the attack, Jason Holder, Alzari Joseph, what he's done with Alzari Joseph, and I can tell you, I know firsthand that he's put in a lot of work with Alzari Joseph to get him to where he is now. I think he deserves, and they by extension, a lot of credit in terms of getting the bowling right. So I personally, getting back to your question, would love to see both of them stay on as West Indies test captain. And listen, I think in the white ball game, I wouldn't be against a new influx of ideas. I agree completely. I've quoted you on other shows, Mash, in the sense that I don't think just bringing in a coach changes everything like how England did with Brendan McCullum. But what I will say is I just think maybe, an influx of new energy, new ideas. I'll take you back to Richard Pybus and what he was able to do when he was there for a short time, beating England in that series, etc. That was just like an influx of energy. So I would like to see, maybe some new ideas, fresh ideas in the white ball game, especially.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think even if Phil isn't removed, I think he'll fall on his sword with regards to the white ball game. That's what I would expect. The only difference between me and some others is that I don't expect anything to change in the short term. That's the only thing. So to me, it's all irrelevant. Like, we can do it, but nothing ain't changing. Richard Mutu says, does Jimmy Adams get a pass? Depends what you think Jimmy Adams' role is. He's not there batting for just like Phil Simmons, he's not there batting for them. He's not going onto the field with the bat in his hand. We know Jimmy Adams could bat. They can't bat. So what's he supposed to do about that? Like, Jimmy Adams' job as director of cricket is to work on systems behind the scenes, alongside Johnny Graves. So I don't know. Go and watch episode 68 where we had Jimmy Adams on the show, people. I'm not sure why Jimmy, unless you lot are saying that everybody's got to get cleared out from Cricket West Indies as well, unless that's a point that you're trying to make. I'm not sure where we're going with the Jimmy one here.
I would credit CWI, man. I think, listen, for us to be able to play over 25 T20 matches between World Cups, I think they deserve tons of credit. And you can't blame them when it comes down to our poor performances, because we had season matches and practice against opposition that's playing in this World Cup and are arguably favorites. New Zealand, India, the list goes on and on. So Bangladesh gave us some difficulties. So I think we've had more than ample experience during the year to be successful in this World Cup. The guys just didn't come to the party and we didn't execute properly.
But Nikhil, this goes back to the point you made earlier. Obviously, we played all these T20 eyes. Brandon King and Carl Mayers had seemed to form some sort of chemistry, a partnership at the top of the order. They were both the top run scorers in CPL. Don't you just think it's madness, Mash and Nikhil, that we went into a World Cup and we didn't play them at the top of the order together when all signs have suggested these were our two in-form openers? I think little things like that also suggest, as much as there's wider systematic issues, there were small things on the ground which we didn't play logically.
Well, can I just say before Nikhil comes in, who selected Evan Lewis? All now, we've had no explanation as to how Evan Lewis got in this World Cup squad. Up until the World Cup selection, we'd all been told that he was beefing Cricket West Indies. Desmond Haynes never actually explained how Evan Lewis got in the squad. So what? When did Man take the fitness test? And the problem was, and we said this, Santokie, when the squad was announced, we made this point. Once you select somebody of the caliber of Evan Lewis, you're going to have to find a way to get him into the team. You can't just leave him riding the bench. And then we said, but if you put Evan in, who's holding a drop? So I just feel, by the way, we still wouldn't have made it out of the group. I just want to point that out right now. But I just feel the construct of the squad didn't make any sense anyway. So if you lot want to criticize Phil, how comes nobody's criticizing Desmond Haynes then? What? So he's the lead selector. So what? You lot want to say it's Phil Simmons' fault only? Because there was no off spinner selected in that World Cup squad, and I said it at the time. Who's the off spinner? Nicholas Pooran. That don't make no sense. Not one off spinner in a World Cup squad. So there's a whole heap of questions to be asked about the construct of the squad. Why did we take 4 openers in a World Cup squad? I don't. God,
no, but Mash, I think on the Lewis point, when he first got selected, I know what you're saying in terms of, look, this man has won a World Cup before. If he's there in the squad, he should play. I was of the other opinion. I said I don't mind, because I looked at even Evan Lewis in the CPL. Listen, people don't understand the impact of not playing international cricket and what that does to your game. When you're not facing that high quality bowling consistently, it is very hard to come back in, even against Scotland, even against Zimbabwe and Ireland, It is hard to come back to that level and just fire straight away. I looked at him in the CPL. You could just sense that he wasn't in that rhythm. He got injured, was in and out of the team. Then he came to the World Cup and he just did not look his usual self, even in that Australia series prior, even in the warm-up. So I was really shocked that they actually played him. I don't mind him being there as cover, but I was actually surprised that they played him. I think it had Shimon Hetmyer been there, he probably wouldn't have made the first 11. But
I agree.
I do think Desmond Haynes deserves some questioning as well, because listen, you could ask yourself, if he could have played in the World Cup, then why not in the series before? He's not like he had a world-class CPL like what Johnson Charles did to get him back in the squad. He clearly was picked based on what we've known him to be able to do. So those are my questions, man. And I still think, though, listen, it doesn't matter. I don't think the personnel matters too much. You say Fabian Allen, coming back in, maybe hitting a couple sixes or taking a few wickets. I don't think that pushes the bar to make us get through the group. I think it comes down to more of the overall team.
I agree. Just because it's a super chat, Vitamin says, I'm sickened from their exit. Pooran and Simmons say it was a learning experience. What on God's green earth have they learned? Powell to be the next captain. I mean, that Pooran saying it was a learning experience for me showed how inexperienced he is as a captain. Because that was one of the worst things he could possibly said in his exit interview. Like, I would have sooner preferred Pooran to cuss everybody out than say it was a learning experience. He probably felt he was covering for his squad and his team, but he was always going to get cussed for saying something like, in fact, Santokie, I haven't even asked you, what did you make of him even saying that? Man said 6 words and cut from the interview.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it was like 5 minutes after they'd been eliminated. So I just think he hadn't thought it through and just thought, what can I say? Like he went into PR mode and thought, what can I just say to just kind of get this interview done? He said it and then just sort of walked away. So I think if he would have done a press conference maybe half an hour later or an hour later, he probably would have articulated it a bit better. But I just think in the heat of the moment, he just gave that sort of answer to try and brush off anything. But yeah, from looking at it, it just doesn't look good to lose in a World Cup and say it was a learning experience. Is not a choice of words.
I'm gonna slide off now so you can get some other people on. But what I will say is, look, people, let's last time I was on this, they said let's be optimistic about us winning. We didn't win and we're out. But still, we have the Super 50 coming up. I'm excited for that one, man. I think Super 50 is going to be fun. So.
Before you go, who are you predicting to win the Super 50? Obviously, Barbados.
Oh, look, Santokie, that's a tough one, man. I thought about it. I'll just tell you who I think is strong. I think Guyana are very strong. I think the Leeward Islands are my dark horse, because I've seen just actually 20 minutes ago, the scorecard from their practice game against the emerging players got released. Raheem Cornwall is there playing for them, etc. Hayden Walsh is back. They've got a good fast bowling unit. I think they are sleepers. So I would pick Jamaica. I would pick the Leeward Islands. And I think Guyana, with that team, Sherman Hetmyer, Shepherd, some West Indies influx, I think they're strong as well. But, I mean, it kicks off Saturday. Let's see how it goes. I haven't said Barbados, so don't come at me with no bias or anything. So
Nikhil thought about the answer, but yeah, we'll definitely have you back on for some Super 50 coverage, Nikhil.
What I would love to see though is, I really hope if they don't get me wrong, they've played cricket after cricket, but I would love to see. I just saw a press release about the cricketers going home to play, the West Indies guys going home to play Super 50. If you get like a Rodman Powell, you get Pooran and stuff, I think that immediately adds the start of tournament. So it would be cool to see if they play.
Well, it's weird because earlier today when Santokie and I recorded the episode, we said that the last thing Pooran should do is play Super 50. I actually think he needs a complete and utter break from all forms of cricket. He needs to just go home, chill with his family, and just shut off the noise outside. He looks like he needs a complete mental recharge. So I wouldn't encourage Pooran to play Super 50.
And it won't even be a real break because he just has to go to the T10 end of November. So middle of November, he have to leave for Abu Dhabi. So it's not even going to be a real break, even if he takes it now. So it'll be interesting. But Mash, could he also say, look, I'm out of form. I want to go into the franchise leagues, the T10. He's going to play in the Dubai League early next year. He might say, well, look, let me get you Super 50 to get back in the nick. I don't know. Yeah,
true. Good point. I still wouldn't advocate it, but each to their own, maybe the lure of having to play for his nation will be too much to resist. Listen, Nikhil, I know you need to go. So thank you as ever for coming on, man.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. I'll be listening to the rest of the show.
No worries. Make sure you comment, man.
All right, man, cheers.
Santokie, there's a comment here from Ian Best, which I just want to address. Ian says when Strauss became director of cricket, he changed the way how the England team operated. But the only thing I want to say, and I'll see what you say about Santokie, is here's the problem. We could appoint new directors of cricket, new CEOs, but West Indies cricket doesn't work like England or anybody else for that matter, because you can have Johnny Grave and Jimmy Adams and Skerritt and whoever those, change all three individuals, right? And they come up with strategies about what to do for West Indies cricket. All it takes is one of the dunce boards in the region, territorial boards, just doing their own thing. So it's too hard to have it's not too hard, but it's much harder to have a cohesive approach in West Indies cricket, because Guyana want to do their own thing. Trinidad want to do their own thing. Barbados, Jamaica, Leeward Islands, Windward Islands. If nobody's listened to the episode where Kishore Shallow came on, who's the president for Windward Islands, look at what they're trying to do as a board, right? To revitalize their cricket. And then ask yourselves questions about, so if they're doing that, how comes Guyana or Jamaica or this, that, and the other aren't doing that? Guyana just had an inter-county tournament, right? Hetmyer skipped playing for West Indies to go play for Berbice. Yet when you looked in the stadium, all I could see was 6 men getting drunk. Like, so what's the plan here, people? I saw enough Guyanese people saying the inter-county tournament wasn't even marketed properly. So we can all look at Cricket West Indies and we can all blame administrators and blame the people at the top, but there is no point in critiquing anything in West Indies cricket if you're not prepared to critique each of the individual territorial boards and say, what are you actually doing though to help cricket? What are you actually doing? Dwayne Bravo said last year that the facilities and standards in Trinidad are still the same as when he was a youth coming up through the system. It's bigger than what any one entity can do at the very top of the game in Cricket West Indies. Sorry, Santokie, I just had to go on that one.
Yeah, and I think with someone like Andrew Strauss, he'd also have the resources to back him. Obviously, if you're director of cricket in West Indies and you say, for instance, oh, we need to play more A-team tours around the world, we just don't have the finances to fund that. So I think it's a bit different in England. And also, as far as I'm aware, Andrew Strauss was the director who prioritized white ball cricket for the World Cup in England, and England failed in red ball cricket, so they kind of sacrificed it and he got cussed out. So it's all a delicate job, but as you've rightly said, it's a different climate in the West Indies just because of the makeup. And that sort of alludes to what Nikhil said about why it appears a lot of players don't have the same passion for West Indies as a Pakistani player would for his nation, or an Indian player, just because West Indies as a construct is not a nation. And so we're always going to be operating slightly different to any other teams in world cricket.
For real. I'm just going to bring Faraz on next. 1 second. Where are we? Sorry, before I do it. Sorry, Pixie Rolls, just to answer that question. But each territorial board has 2 directors on the main Cricket West Indies board. So what needs to happen is we need to get rid of all of them. There needs to be independent directors running Cricket West Indies and none of them from the different territories. Because the problem with the territories is none of them are going to vote for transformative change because they're all protecting their own position. So why would a man from Jamaica who's on the Cricket West Indies as a director on Cricket West Indies board vote to revamp the system when that means he'll probably lose his job? Man are making money. They're eating food off being directors on Cricket West Indies board. So you think they're going to vote themselves off? This is the big... whole system's messed up, man. It's messed up. It's just an old boys network. How can you be an independent director on a cricket board and for 20 years the team is failing and you're still a director on the cricket board and nothing ain't happening? Nothing ain't happening. The team's losing, but you're still collecting your same paycheck. It don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. Anyways, everybody on Faraz. Yes, Faraz, what are you saying? Oh, you're on mute, man.
No,
we can't hear you, man. What's going on? You must be saying something reckless. That's why you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now, man.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it was good match. What's good, Santokie?
All good, man. All good. What are you going to say? I told you so?
Well, I was here last week, I think, and I told you I tipped Scotland to beat West Indies, and then against Zimbabwe, I thought Zimbabwe were going to rattle them, which they should have done. But a few reckless poor shots, and that got West Indies back into the game. I think that sort of gave them fake confidence into heading to the next game, because I tipped West Indies to win. I thought they're two-time champions. That I know they're not the same team as what they were in 2016 and the years before, but they have at least the mentality to go into the Super 12 and challenge some of these top-tier sides. But fortunately, that wasn't the case, and I don't know where to go from here for the West Indies right now. Like, they do have talent, like no one can deny that, but there's no point having talent if you can't play a game without the match situation and match awareness.
Who do you blame? And I'm going to put you in the cast of a neutral here. Who do you, when you watch, what are you thinking? So we're all emotionally invested in this and getting in our feelings about it. But when you're watching, are you looking at it going, boy, this must be the coach's fault, or are you seeing it as the players not being good enough? How do you view it?
It's a bit of a strange one, honestly, because like at international level, you expect the coaches to take a lot of responsibility. I just look at Phil Simmons. I just feel like at some point he feels like he's a dead man walking. Like there's nothing much he can really do. And when he like blasted those players out for saying that like they're unprofessional, like who is supposed to be coaching and trying to fix those techniques? So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one because look, a lot of people cuss out Pooran saying about his captaincy. You lot were the same people that were like abusing Pollard and all that. Now he's gone as an experienced leader. And this sort of brings me back to when like Bangladesh before they went on a run in the one-day format, like before West Indies played Bangladesh in a series in Bangladesh, West Indies absolutely hided them 3-0 or something. And I feel like they sort of need someone that can captain the side, that he may not be the best player in the nation, but he can at least have some experience and guide them. Like I think when Mashrafi took over for Bangladesh back in 2015, when they knocked out England out of the World Cup, they beat India at home, beat South Africa. They had those experienced players like Mahmudullah, Shakib, Mashrafi leading through the side. And yes, there were some youngsters like Tuscan came into the scene that time. Mustafiz was relatively new, but they had experienced players there to back them. They didn't bring like youngsters that had talent early just to like hope for results. I just feel that Phil Simmons just he doesn't have any faith, I feel, and he's just trying to hope for results. That's just how I just generally see it.
Did you take any positives? Like who were the players that sort of stood out for you for West Indies in the campaign?
Probably have to say Alzari Joseph because of the last game, how he won it for them. But even then, I feel Alzari is fairly inconsistent. That's why he hasn't played a lot of T20s for the West Indies. But it's really hard to take any positives out of like not qualifying for the next round. I guess Rothman Powell is another option. He looked like the only one that was going to control innings. But honestly, really no one else really. I felt Holder underperformed as well, despite being one of the more experienced players. Johnston Charles wasn't bad in parts. Akil Hussain, he isn't a match winner, but he is someone that keeps up the run rate tidy, and he can take a few wickets here and there. But you know, when you're not qualifying for the Super 12s, there isn't much positive to take out, is there?
Just keep it straight and raw like that. There isn't though. There really isn't. I don't think no player can say. Literally, I'm serious. No player can say they played well in all three matches. None. No one. Everybody who's going home. Some are staying in Australia for the Test series, but anyone who's going home cannot honestly look in the mirror and say, "Well, you know what? I was brilliant in all three matches, and you lot 100%. Sucked." Everyone sucked in at least one match somewhere, and the reality is, you can't carry that many players. You can't.
I'll tell you this honestly, like. Before we played you guys this year with the Bangladesh series and the Test matches, before I was looking at the World Cup qualifiers, all these teams like Zimbabwe, West Indies, Ireland. Before I found your podcast, I wasn't really as much as invested in West Indies cricket, so I thought they should be one of the sides that easily smoke through the World Cup qualifiers and be there in the Super 12. After going through your reviews and everything, it's just so different. It's like I don't feel like these players play for each other. It's more like they hope when they go into the field, they just do something for God's sake so they don't get criticized. It's really... You know, like you can blame Hetmyer for missing this play, and you can blame Holder for not playing like this. But the truth is that as a team, they're not gelling well. Like you said, Desmond Haynes, he's the selector. He didn't pick an off spinner. Like, boy, what's going on there? You're picking 5 openers in a squad. Like, it's all over the place. Selection-wise, committee-wise, it's just a joke.
I think the thing is we've always had, when we played in 2016, I think we played 2 T20s in the build-up because we've always had that experience. Gale, Bravo, Russell, Pollard. we have been able to basically rely on them coming together for a tournament and knowing exactly what they need to do and winning. So that's basically become our formula for T20s. We don't necessarily emphasize importance on preparation. We just assume, as you said, that players can come together at a tournament and gel. But obviously that generation has gone, and this generation aren't as talented, so they can't do that. So you feel like we didn't focus as much on preparation and getting ready for a tournament as we would have, because we've never had to do it in the past, basically.
But before Faraz comes in there, I still want this question answered. So I think was it against Ireland? Yeah, it was against Ireland. There is no other 4-member side that Gareth Delaney would bowl 4 overs and go 3 for 16, right? And Rovman Powell, I'm going to pick Rovman Powell's dismissal. Gareth Delaney had a man out. I think it was at cow corner, right?
Yeah.
And that was like the longest boundary in the whole ground. He bowled to the plan, which was his plan basically was, I'm going to bowl it on Rovman's legs, and he's going to be such a dunce that he's going to fall right into the trap and hole it out to the man at cow corner. I just want people who think they understand cricket to tell me, so whose fault is that? Is that Phil Simmons' fault, or is that Rovman Powell's fault? Because I could see the trap, right? I could see the trap before Gareth Delaney bowled the ball. So if I can see the trap, how comes Rovman Powell can't see the trap? What is going through our players' heads, or are they just not good enough?
And that's what I told you, Mash. That's talent there. Rovman Powell is a talent, but there's no match situation, match awareness. Like every batsman before they face the ball, they look towards the field and all that, seeing where the holes are. Like it's just like I can't even explain it properly. Like Gareth Delaney, like I don't want to take credit away, but come on, man. Gareth Delaney 3 for 18. What more do you want? And like I said again, West Indies got to start. Once again, they got to start. They build a platform, and they lose 1 wicket, bang, bang, bang. The whole team goes missing.
I don't know what to say. I don't know. Santokie, to say something. I don't know what to say. Like, what's the reason, Santokie? I don't get it. I don't understand.
As with a lot of things in West Indies, there's no logic behind it. There's no point trying to work out why this happens. But it's a long-term problem for us. Do you feel there's any short-term solutions, or do you think this is something that's going to take a few years to address within the side?
Oh, it's going to take a long time. I feel like even last year's tournament, like you guys touched upon, I think you guys only won 1 game, and that was against Bangladesh, and that's too early by 3 runs. I think Bangladesh was stupid enough to choke that game as well. So. Yeah, look, there's a lot of lack of confidence there. I really don't know where to start from, because I feel with the board, like with experienced players like Andrew Russell, like Kieran Pollard, they just hide them and make them mystery cases, and the fans always have to like deal with this bullshit. Like they don't know where players are going to, when are they available. Like Hetmyer missing the plane just before the World Cup. Like people probably look at Hetmyer as like they're like key man. You know what? Like for us as Bangladeshi fans, like Shakib Al Hasan, every game, Shakib Al Hasan, our experienced man. They thought Hetmyer, experienced man, at least he can guide us to the team, a young side, maybe, build some strategy or something. But I think it could be as silly as missing a player. I don't want to judge Hetmyer for whatever reason or whatnot.
Nah, judge him.
But as a professional, like just before a world main event, being there for years, like how stupid can you be just to pull off, I don't want to go to a World Cup event. Oh boy. I feel like I need a break, But yeah, look, it's going to take a while. Unfortunately, look, I have a lot of respect for the Windies as their past performances. They've been 2-time champions, but people need to understand that tag is no longer there. That's why I tipped Scotland and everything. People need to stop looking at West Indies as a name for what they've done before. It's no longer the same. And when you study West Indies cricket, like your fans as well say that, I just don't know when it's going to be fixed. Look, there's definitely talent, but doesn't every team have talent in international cricket?
Yeah.
Basically, that's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, final thing here. Sorry, so Fitterman says squad selection is being highlighted correctly. I would ask why a good power play bowler like Cottrell wasn't used in any games, but Oldine gets a 4th over in a power play. In hindsight, it's so bad. In hindsight, Chase should have gone. Yeah, definitely agree with the Chase point, or at least some off spinner somewhere. The Cottrell one was interesting, Santokie, because lots of people, I think Medvis is in this chat, said bring Cottrell in because our batters can't do anything anyway, so you might as well bring in the extra bowler. Was it a bad decision in the end not to use Cottrell, Santokie, or because we can't bat anyway, would it have made little to no difference?
I don't think it would have made much difference because he goes for so many runs anyway, Cottrell. He's not the most disciplined when it comes to restricting runs. He maybe would have got 1 or 2 wickets, but as we said with a lot of examples, I don't think adding Cottrell to the side would have made a massive difference. We wouldn't be in the Super 12s with Cottrell.
Can I also just add to, like, also Carl Mills opening the bowling, that was just plain stupidity at its best. But even Odin Smith at the death, even that Zimbabwe game last time, like they were like 50, they needed 50 or something of like 3-4 overs, and they got like 20 and over, and that could have honestly like got Zimbabwe right back into the game easily as much as that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Faraz, before we let you go, it's a few hours until Bangladesh kick off their campaign. What are your predictions? We got to talk about Bangladesh if you're on here.
Well, we're playing the Netherlands. Well, we should realistically win that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we lost that. We've already lost to Zimbabwe, just beat the UAE. We lost to Scotland last year, mate. So look, I still expect us to win, but yeah, it will be really close. I don't expect us to blow them off the park. I think Shakim needs to have a big game as well. Him and Afif, Lith and Das. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to like hopefully a much improved World Cup. Maybe 2 wins out of 5. That would be the expectation. I think we can definitely beat Netherlands for sure. I'm going to the South Africa game this week at Sydney, so I hope we can put up a good fight. I don't waste 3 hours of my life, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how we go because South Africa, India, Pakistan, they'll all be fighting for a top 2 spot. Listen,
I love how us Minnows fans talk at tournaments. Like, yeah, maybe we'll get 2 wins if we're lucky. that Minnows mentality is undefeatable. Listen, I hope Bangladesh get their 2 wins. We only got 1 and didn't even make the flipping Super 12. I hope you get 2. You know. Listen, Faraz, we're gonna bring some other guests on, but thanks for coming on, man.
Take it easy, man.
Yeah, no worries. So just shouting out Loose Andrew for the £5 super chat. You didn't even make a comment. You must have forgotten to, but thank you all the same. Santokie, this point here from Chris says, the reading of the game and situational analysis is something I never did at grassroots level, and I very much doubt some of these guys did either. And that's just again, this is not to absolve Phil of any blame, but I do think people aren't fully understanding how much I still maintain that lots of our players, if not all of them, don't understand how to play top level cricket till they get to the top level. And we already know that our domestic level is basically glorified club cricket, our domestic level. So we're basically asking players to make a massive jump to international cricket, and then we can't understand why they can't do well in international cricket. So I do think there's a lot to be said that understanding how huge the jump is for these players.
I think so many of our guys we said have played in the IPL, which is where you focus on literally situational analysis and how to play the situation. So it's baffling that they haven't been able to transfer some of that knowledge to the side.
Say that again. Sorry, say that point again.
I was saying so many of our players play in the IPL where you focus on literally situational analysis, like what you do in this situation, that situation, what you do in your role. So it's baffling that they've come to the West Indies and they've played without such awareness of how to play the situation.
But do you think that's because they're playing with better players in like the top in those like IPLs and stuff like that? They're playing with players. So this is just take Pooran as an example, right? How often when Pooran plays in those franchise leagues is he in a position where he's having to definitely win the game for his team? I would argue that more often than not, he's in teams where if he fails, it's not the end of the world. Whereas if Pooran fails to West Indies, it's game over. Like, do you see what I mean? So I don't know how many of these, like when our GOATs were GOATs, they were the match winners in those teams. None of these current players are match winners in their franchise teams. They're developing players within their franchise teams. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think, like you said, I think this current generation in IPL teams essentially play like supporting roles, whereas obviously the likes of Gale and Bravo were like main event stars. So there's that dynamic as well. But it's just amazing that IPL is high level quality cricket, and they don't seem to pick up much skills about situational awareness and how to play that regard when they come to the West Indies. But as you said, it could just be the environment and kind of the pressure is different on players there. So as we said, there's a lot. There's no one solution for all of this. There's a whole host of different issues that sort of need to be addressed.
This is a good point from Sumit, because I hadn't thought about this. We should have seen this coming from when we had no shirt sponsor for the whole year. We should have seen all of this coming. So, Doki, we only got a shirt sponsor about 2 months ago. We've been playing all year with no sponsor on our shirts. So, I do see Sumit's point here that generally speaking, times are hard out here. We're just a ragtag team, just a random ragtag team.
It's actually mad when you think about it. The West Indies, considering the brand we have, a lot of people always say we're like Brazil, the branding we have across the world, West Indies cricket, that calypso vibe, and we weren't able to get a shirt sponsor for pretty much a whole year.
So, Basil Butcher Jr. is in the chat. Basil, if you can, I don't know if you're going to come on because Basil is a very learned man. I don't know if Basil wants to come on. Basil, just indicate in the chat if you do. I'll cue you up if you do want to come on. But somebody said earlier on, and apologies if I've not remembered who said, who's West Indies analyst. So the analyst is a guy called Avinash. I actually met him in the Netherlands when I went to watch our series out there. So West Indies do have an analyst, and they do have somebody showing these players what the opposition is going to do. But here's the problem. The analyst doesn't bat for these players either. An analyst will show the players, this is what Gareth Delaney is going to do. This is what he's likely to do if he comes on to bat. He doesn't tell Rodman Powell to then hold out to cow corner, having fallen into the exact trap that Gareth Delaney is going to set for him. Like, again, people, the analyst and the coach can't bat for these guys. I think we're just looking for someone to blame if we're going to go down that route.
Guys,
right,
my laptop's about to run out. I'm just going to jump off for a second.
Yeah, no worries. I'm going to bring Shakes on whilst you jump off. Yes, Shakes, how you doing?
Yo, what's good, man? What's good? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, no, you've been patiently waiting in the background, Shakes. But Shakes, I think you and I are probably going to have a very similar conversation here because I think you've long accepted where West Indies cricket is at. But go on, say what you want to say.
Yeah, man. I mean, to be honest, for me, I have long said that I feel West Indies is an associate side in terms of just how we perform, in terms of the consistency, in terms of the standards that we're able to reach. We're at an associate level, and I am perfectly comfortable and fine with that. Because I feel that with the kind of plans that Skerritt and Shallow have put into place, they look to me like good long-term plans that are going to take us to where we want to be as supporters. But that means in the meantime that we're going to have a lot of crap to deal with. And that means we're not even going to make, Super 12s of T20 World Cups and things like that. So it is what it is. I've kind of said I'm quite at peace with it. I've accepted it. I think a lot of fans just need to kind of get on board now. And it seems like people are slowly starting to realize that actually, in order to make West Indies be what we want it to be, we're going to have to buy into some long-term planning and long-term kind of changes to get to where we need to be. So, yeah,
are you looking past? So I made a comment so when Basil comes on a bit later, I made a comment to Basil a few days ago, maybe even yesterday, where I said it's time to look past this generation of players. Obviously, they still have to play, but like what's that phrase? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something to change. Like at this point, it would be insanity to expect that this generation is suddenly going to become world beaters or consistent or anything like that. That's not me maligning them and saying they're no good. I'm just saying that there is a level that they can reach, and occasionally they'll do something absolutely brilliant. But that is the exception to the norm, and I think I've just made my peace with that. I think we have to look at the next, let's look at under 15s. Let's say from under 15s up. Can the systems that are being put in place help that next set of under 15s so that when they go to under 19 World Cup, by the time they get to under 19, when they then come out of under-19 World Cup, well, you know what? Hear what? Now there's a Cricket West Indies academy that they can go to in Antigua and not have to deal with the foolishness in their own territory that won't develop them properly anyway. So I do think that we have to trust some of these processes in the background and just write off the next 5 years or so, or maybe 10 years. It's 10 years or so.
Could be,
Can develop. Sorry, Santokie, you're back.
Yeah, I was just going to say the definition of insanity might be Shakes pulling up to our podcast with an Arsenal shirt on, you know.
With confidence as well, like it wasn't 1-1 today.
Remind me how Spurs got on today, Santokie.
So I think you two have made valid points, but I have one thing to throw in. Do you think? I think it's an unusual dynamic, just how much empowerment the West Indies cricket team gives to people in the Caribbean. Do you think fans in the region, or even general populations in the region, would have the patience to accept 10 years of underperformance and then seeing light at the end of the tunnel without having given up within that period, just because of the unique dynamic cricket has to the region and kind of the confidence and pride it gives to people there?
Yeah, I guess that's the $10 million question, isn't it? Is can people in the region, are they prepared to accept that this is a long-term process and you're going to have to put up with some pain in order to see some benefits at the end of it? I don't know, because even talking to family back home and stuff, like, people are just cussing left, right and center, want this person gone, that person gone. And I keep saying to them, that at the moment, what I keep hearing from people in the region is tantamount to trying to shift the deck chairs on the Titanic and going, well, if we just move the chairs around, maybe the ship will stop sinking. No, the ship is sinking. There's a whacking great hole in the middle of it and we're going down. Like, we can either do everything we can to fix the hole or get off the boat. Like, these are our two choices right now. So, as soon as people can grasp that, then I think we will get there. But, when you were talking earlier about Rovman Powell and his decision-making, things like that, like, things like that, you can't blame Phil Simmons for that. You can't blame Monty for that. You can't blame, Roddy Eswick for Odine's poor bowling in the death overs. There's certain skills and things that these guys should have picked up already in their in their development stages. Essentially, all we should really be asking the coaching staff to do is to help these guys put together plans and tactics and things so that they know their matchups when they go into these games, and they know, what their plans are, and then trust them to execute those plans. But, we can't expect, like, Phil and these guys to tell Rovman, like, don't play that kind of shot to this guy, bro. Like, you can't, expecting that is just madness. Like you said, it's the definition of insanity. So I don't know. But I'm in a zen place. I'm trying to look to the future and draw strength from there.
Santokie, before you come on, you know when I know a man is finished with West Indies cricket is when they're just calmly going, yeah, it's just rubbish, I
was gonna say it's a big question, and you need to be honest about this. When you were speaking to your people then back in Grenada, were they cussing out about Andre Fletcher not being in the side?
Of course they were. Of course they were. Because this is, and again, this is the part of the problem that we have, is that, people can be so bloody one-eyed and just like, the problem is, they should have taken Fletcher. Were they taking Johnson Charles for? And I have to remind them, Johnson Charles was top scoring in the CPL, so they kind of had like, there was some justification behind them making the decision. You could argue the toss of it, but you could understand why they made that decision. But no, you see, it's because they've got an issue against, like, they've always had an issue against us because we're small and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just,
small?
Crying out loud. Like,
so I thought you meant small as in size. I just realized you meant as in the nation.
yeah, as in, like, because Grenada is so small as a nation compared to others and doesn't have the legacy that the other Caribbean islands has in West Indian cricket. They have this kind of victimhood sort of mentality where they feel it's some conspiracy that's out there to try and stop Grenadians from getting there. But I mean, it's funny because I see that kind of thing reflected throughout the region. I see it in, you know, in Guyana, in Guyana, man will be cussing and saying, you know, there's a conspiracy against the Guyanese, and then in Barbados, it's a conspiracy against Bajans, and it's just like, well, you know, how do you get around that? So I really do kind of sympathize with Cricket West Indies and what they're facing, really.
I actually think Jamaicans are probably the least insular when it comes to cricket, but I would argue that because Jamaica has athletics and football, other sports, whereas the other islands, Guyana, Trinidad, Grenada, we're just exclusively cricket essentially. So all our
pretty much, yeah.
I've always said as a Jamaican that we are the first to cuss out our own before we even try and promote them to do anything in West Indies cricket. A Jamaican would sooner cuss out Andre Russell before anybody else cusses out Andre Russell. So I do think we're a bit more unique in that sense, in that we'd rather cuss them out ourselves first things first before anybody else. But I just want to make a point, and it's a nice segue to when Basil comes on next, right? And Santokie is about Guyana. So, so I'm linking Shakes' point and then segueing it for when Basil comes on. So yesterday, Santokie, Guyana Harpy Eagles, had a practice match at Providence, yeah? Leon Johnson's 11 scored 100 all out in 27 overs, right? And this is but here's why I'm making this point. This is the regional standards we're talking about here. 100 in 27 overs. So I looked at it. Imlak 29, Tage 13, Richie Lucknow 10, Hetmyer 7, Bramble 7, and then a whole heap of man just taking wickets, right? And then Permo's 11 scored 103 or 4 after 16 overs, right? And I'm using that as a example of the standards are poor. That's prep for Super 50. And we'll all watch Super 50, but we all know the standards are poor. We are selecting players from substandard cricket. And then when these same players, so the great hope Shimron Hetmyer scoring 7 in a 100 all out, just to take Hetmyer as an example, right? We are selecting these players who struggle at domestic level. And then they take their struggle at domestic level to international level. And then we question why they're struggling at international level. But this is the connect I'm not understanding. Instead of people saying, boy, it must be a grassroots problem or territorial problem, everyone makes it out to be a head coach problem at the level they're supposed to only get to once their game is good. But my issue is I do not believe these players get to international level secure in their own game. And that's why I said earlier, Santokie, in terms of T20 cricket, who is in that squad that went to the World Cup, who's a genuine established T20 player? And before anyone says to me, Pooran at this stage is still being selected based on the potential he's got, not because of the established numbers that he's actually got. And that's in franchise cricket. Never mind international cricket. That's just in franchise cricket, right? Some might say Holder. I guess I might accept Holder, but that's a recent thing where Holder's now kind of capitalized in T20 cricket. But if you go through our squad, 1 to 11 of who went to the World Cup, who would you say, beyond Jason Holder and Pooran at a push, who would you say, yeah, they are bona fide, established, check their numbers, T20 players?
Well, this is the problem, because what comes with the golden generation or of the GOATs is that we essentially had, since the formation of T20 cricket, we've essentially had 15 to 20 players who have always been in the West Indies side. So we've never had to prepare for developing other players, and they've all suddenly left. We had 6 or 7 players retire with last year, and we've suddenly had to fill the void with players who don't have that experience. So if you look at that squad, I think only Johnson Charles was the only player who featured in 2016, and he's only played sporadically for West Indies within that period. So we just lacked any sort of tournament experienced players in the side. But that's one negative effect of having a golden generation who was so dominating. It's hard for other players to get a spot in the side.
Yeah, Shakes, let me give you the last point, and I'm going to bring Basil on. Oh, can you hear me?
Yo, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm giving you the last point, Shakes, before I
Yeah.
move to bring Basil on. Boy, Shakes ain't got no point.
Oh, sorry. Wait, I thought you were going to ask me a question, you know.
Shakes just looking, going, what's wrong with you?
sorry. Yeah, well, for me, as I said, like, for me, I wasn't expecting us to qualify for this World Cup, to be honest. If I'm being brutally honest, I wasn't. I was very happy with the win over Zimbabwe, very pleased, and was happy to kind of celebrate. I will always rally for the team, always going to rally come what may. I will support no matter what. I'll be watching Super 50 and watching teams struggle to make 250 in a session, and that'll be fine. But for me, it's all about the long term and the future, and making sure that we are on the right path to get the team to where we want it to be. And that's it for me, really. The rest of it, as I said, I'll watch us get licks in Australia in the Test series. I'll watch us go to South Africa and get licks, and I'll still rally, and that'll be fine. But for me, I'm keeping my eyes on the prize. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Shakes, for coming through, man. Long time listener and support of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And yeah, listen, luckily West Indies are giving us a break for a while until the Australia Test series. So
yeah,
so wait until we do another show around that one. But thanks you so much, Shakes. I'm gonna go to the next guest.
Yeah, no problem, man. Good evening, guys.
Okay, no worries.
Take it easy.
Cool.
What we saying, Matt? Final guest time, yeah?
Say again.
We ready for our final guest?
Yeah, I think it's our final guest, people. Final guest. I want to say we're saving the best till last, so I'm gonna give this guest a bit of an intro. If some of you are listening, going Basil Butcher, well, that name rings a bell. Yeah, well, it should ring a bell. I'll let him do his own intro when he comes in. But Basil and I are in a WhatsApp chat group, and Santokie, when I text you about that group that I'm in, it's this one. It's this one with Basil in forever. I'm forever catching jokes from Basil about West Indies cricket, but he's a very, very knowledgeable, knowledgeable man in terms of what's going on with West Indies cricket. So we're honoured, Basil, to have you on. Let me bring Mr. Basil Butcher Jr. on. Yes, you want to take yourself off mute?
Good evening, guys. Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So Basil, for those in the chat who don't know who you are, I want you to give everyone an introduction first, just in case they don't realize.
All right. Well, first I'll start. The name. Why you talk about the name? And my dad made the name famous. The late Basil Butcher Sr. that played for the West Indies in the '60s. So I'm just carrying on. He gave me the name, right? But I always tell people I became a West Indies cricket fan since I was in my mother's womb, because I was born in England while my dad was playing in the leagues in England in 1964. And from that day on, I came out. I've been around West Indies cricket all my life. I just the other day I was saying to a friend, one of the things I miss the most about my dad no longer being here is that I used to have the opportunity to sit with him and watch a cricket match, and he would see things, and I'm looking and I'm like, damn, what are you talking about? And just picking his brain. And one story I always tell people, my dad, when he has a stance, he sticks by it. And this situation with West Indies Cricket Administration, he made a one-man stance all the way back in the 80s. He boycotted going to cricket in Guyana from 1984 until 1994, when I begged him, when I went home for a test match against England, to come with me to go to see the game. And so we went to see the President's 11 match between England and the West Indies President's 11. And this would have been the first time he would have ever seen Chanderpaul bat. Because Chanderpaul would make his test debut in the test match that followed the present level match. And Chandler Paul made 4. Just to show you the things that you see, what I missed about picking his brain. As we're walking out border, he turns to me and said, "That chap Chandler Paul is a damn good batsman." I look at him like horns were growing out of his head. I said, "Look, this guy only made 4 runs. What the hell are you talking about?" And he explained to me, well, the rest is history. Chandler Paul made 11,000 or 11,000 odd test runs, right? But that's just me. I'm a cricket coach. I'm in the fitness. I've toured with U.S. teams as a physio. I've been a head coach for U.S. women's national team in the past, and coaching in the regions here in the U.S. And of course, being a great West Indies cricket fan, a diehard.
So in fact, go on, Santokie, because this is the first time you two are getting to know each other.
This is the first time I met you, Basil. But I actually think my granddad went to school with your dad in.
Yes, that's what Mash told me, that your grandfather is from Port Pooran, like my father, and they went to the same school. Yes.
Yeah, because I think my granddad's 92, but he said he was a few years older than.
Yes. Because my dad, if he was alive, he would have been 89. If he was, so he was a little bit his senior. Yeah. So your granddad would be the same age as Joe Solomon.
Yeah.
Solomon is 3 years older than my father. Yes.
Yeah, Joe Solomon. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
Real Guyanese history out here. You know?
Yeah.
So Basil, the World Cup. I mean, I know a lot of your views on it, but start wherever you want to start. I guess the questions I'll give you are: what did you make of it, and where do we go next?
I've made this point for a while now, that West Indies cricket fans are always looking at the West Indies, unfortunately, the historical brand, the great West Indies, and not the reality on the field. So their expectations are never matching the reality on the field. So when we get beat by teams like the Scotlands and the Irelands and so on, there's this intense ire that for me now, I find it hilarious, because I don't view us at way up here in Ireland and Scotland way down there. I view us, we're on the same level with those teams now, unfortunately, right? That's the level of cricket has dropped. Like I was just making a point about it in the Super 12s. The only team, after looking at the Pakistan-India game today, and I said that those are 2 world-class teams we're playing. We're nowhere on that level. We are on the level with Netherlands, Ireland, Scotland, Zimbabwe. And even I would say the Afghanistan bowling attack that they have, we will have serious trouble with that bowling attack. I don't know about their batters so much, but that bowling attack would put us under serious pressure. Because look, we had slow bowlers, because I'm not going to call any of those bowlers from Scotland or Zimbabwe or Ireland spinners, because the ball wasn't spinning. Those guys were slow bowlers, and our guys couldn't handle them. Much less you run into Rashid Khan and Mujib and so on, who spins the ball. What's going to happen then? But for the World Cup, my expectations wasn't high at all. Looking at what happened last year, this was just a continuation of it, particularly in the batting. Our batting was putrid, and going forward, as all of us would say, yes, somebody must be accountable, etc., etc. But I don't like how so much of the blame is focused at, say, the coaches, because the coaches cannot go out on the field and play for these players. These players, many of them, they've played professionally in the IPLs and all the other leagues around, as well as international. So they have all the data on their game, where they have to improve and all the work they need to do. My question is, are these guys putting in that work when they go away in between series because we're not seeing improvements, right? So the coach could give you all the information, but I've been arguing our problem is not coaches per se, it is our execution. And I've come to the conclusion, like you said earlier, these guys are no good. And I actually have written them off and said, look, I'm looking towards the under 15s and maybe the under 17s of the, though that's a generation that's going to probably help to bring us back to where we can be a team that can consistently compete on the world level.
But Basil, you said that we're on the same level as Ireland, which I agree with. Ireland, Netherlands, Zimbabwe. We receive a lot more resources and funding than these nations, but we're at the same level. Can you, in your opinion, what has led to the circumstances where we're at that level? Is it just a mismanagement from administration, the coaching, or do you just think it's the talent pool we have? This was inevitable.
Let's put it this way: when we have a cricket structure that afforded us to become world beaters when cricket was still an amateur, semi-professional sport. The minute cricket made that transition to becoming a full professional sport and the landscape of world cricket started to change, we never changed with it. We still kept doing the same things that we were doing when we were world beaters, which was not appropriate or fit for the new environment. So and then on top of that, I think you had people coming into administering West Indies cricket. They liked the game, but they didn't understand what it took to develop cricketers. So we had all of these guys, you see them because there was this big hue and cry in the Caribbean. You would hear, we need business people to run West Indies cricket. No, not cricketers. They know nothing about business because you remember now the game started to become more professional. Business became it became business. It was no longer this semi-pro or whatever sport it was in the past. So we had all these business people that came in, loved the game, but they didn't understand what it takes to build to develop cricketers. So what you started to see, those same structures that helped us to be great started to be deteriorating. Where, like, I give you one example. 3-day club cricket was the norm throughout the region. Every island, territory, their first division, even in the second division, they would play 3-day club cricket. Now today, throughout the entire region, the only place that plays 3-day club cricket is Barbados. Nowhere else, right? Now, I remember a friend of mine, he played on the 19th for Guyana, and he called me one morning, woke me up in a huff. He said, I turned to these two guys who play for Guyana, and I asked them, y'all ever bat 2 sessions for your club team? And they said no. He said, well, how the hell you could go and bat a session for Guyana? Because batting 2 sessions for your club team is not even still equivalent to batting a session for a regional team. So if these guys can't even do that at their club level, we're now expecting them now to, by some waving the magic wand, as they go up levels, they're going to be able to handle that stress and so on and so forth. I think that's why I say our expectations don't meet. I went back home in 1995. I used to go home every Christmas, and there was a trial match still being played to pick the team for the 96 season. That's when I first met Sarwan. He was 15 at the time. And a bunch of my friends, several of us from living in the United States, we all were there at the game. Guys who played cricket, some of them played national cricket and for Guyana and so on. And after the day's play, I'm standing at the bottom of it was at Eve Leary. I'm standing at the bottom of the stairs, and a guy who umpires here in the US, he also came home for the holiday. He was walking out with his bicycle and he saw me. He said, Butcher, this is not what I remember. He said, you could come home and practice 3 months and you could play with these guys. This is not the standard. This was in 1995, my friends. Right? You guys had Jimmy Adams on.
Yep.
And Jimmy Adams spoke about the standards. He saw it dropping just around the time 1995, that time. And when he said that, I smiled because I remember that conversation all the way back then. And as Jimmy said, there was nothing done to arrest that decline. As my dad used to say, all these piecemeal, all they're doing is little piecemeal things when it has to be a transformation. And to answer your question directly, Santokie, my dad schooled me years ago. He said to me, the West Indies Cricket Board consists of members from the territories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm quoting him directly now. He said, if you have shit at the territorial level, what you think coming up from there to the West Indies level is the same. Now you're going to have a concentration of shit because you're getting shit from all over the region now. And that's been a problem. Our territorial boards are not fit for purpose for preparing and developing international ready cricketers that can compete consistently. Look, Barbados got all the things in place. Analysts, full-time analysts, physio, coach, all these things. When last Barbados produced a great player? Desmond Haynes is the last batsman from Barbados to average 40. He made his debut in 1978, where most of the current generation of Caribbean West Indies fans weren't even born. One of my friends today asked a Bajan group, asked them when last they produced a good fast bowler. And that is the land of fast bowling. Right? You see, and I'm not trying to knock Barbados, but Barbados is a shining beacon, supposed to be the shining beacon of our cricket in the Caribbean. So I'm just using that. Today, one of the things I grew up seeing, Barbadian batsmen, great playing the horizontal bat shots. You see Barbadian, the batters today, when they come to the national level, bowling short at them, they ducking for cover. They don't reflect. I had to ask the question, wait, guys don't bowl fast in Barbados no more? Aren't the wickets bouncy and fast no more? Because these batters are coming through and they're not capable of playing the short. But not to say the rest of the guys around the region could do it neither. But that was the place where, so when you see that happening there, you know we in serious trouble.
There's a point here from Mario, which is because Mario's saying, because I think he's taken exception to you raising Barbados. He said the majority of the test team is from Barbados, which is correct. But the test team's no good either. So,
exactly.
So I mean, we're all okay. We've slightly improved, but I think people need to understand that. And I mean, I'm in agreement with Basil here. Yes, Barbados has the best developmental system in the region, but that doesn't mean we've developed some good players. Like someone in the chat here has put, what about Craig Brathwaite? And yeah, Craig is, I think everyone forgets, Craig averages 34.
Right.
In West Indies, in West Indies case, okay, fine, that's world class. But sorry,
yes,
the normal metric in Test cricket is 40. I just want people to remember that.
To be a good player, yeah. I mean, 34, we wouldn't even call you a good player. Look, Carl Hooper was chastised for being a 30-something average batter, right? And now Carl Hooper's average will be better than everybody's playing on the West Indies, right? And he was chastised when he played for being in the 30s. So I mean, people, we have come to accept. It would seem sometimes it come to accept some low standards for our players when we have a whole plethora of batters that are averaging in the 20s. You know, that's not even a batters. I would say you should not even put batsman next to your name if you're averaging 20s. That's an all-rounder or a bowler or something of this sort, not a batter, you know, because it's really, you know, people need to understand, like you guys were talking with the earlier guests, this situation. And what I would say to the earlier guests, I think the Caribbean fans would go for it because they don't show up to the cricket anyway, right? They haven't been showing up for years. And I think if you come out straight up and explain in a very critical, clear manner to the fans, this is our situation. And you know something was interesting? I thought Skerritt did so when he did his Frank Worrell lecture a couple of years ago. I thought he was crystal clear as to the state of our cricket and what we have to do to move forward, right? But the thing he left out, I thought he didn't point to the territorial boards.
Yes, and this is my problem. This is my issue, because I always know that Cricket West Indies haven't got their comms right when people cuss them before they even ask. So what I always say about media in the Caribbean, everybody's got something to say about Skerritt and Cricket West Indies and Phil, but nobody, like, so if I pick up the Gleaner in Jamaica, I'm not reading any article about anybody saying how poor the JCA is run and why is there a lack of development in terms of Jamaican cricketers. I'll never see an article on that, but I'll see an article about how West Indies is run poorly by Cricket West Indies. So I don't know where the disconnect has happened within the region between understanding that there is a territorial board that runs the cricket in every single nation, and if standards are poor in your nation, that's the territorial board's fault. That's not Ricky Skerritt's fault. That's not Johnny Gray's fault. That's because of, like, so to explain to people who are just listening and maybe not getting this, when Cricket West Indies created the academy at Coolidge Cricket Ground, right? We asked Johnny Grave about it. And I don't know if this was on record, if this was off record, but either way, I'm saying it now. And we said to Johnny Graves, Santokie and myself, how are you going to get the other territories to also build academies? Because it's not Cricket West Indies' responsibility to build an academy for Guyana or build an academy for Trinidad. And John basically said, if we wait around for all the territories to build an academy, we could be waiting forever. So we've built one in Antigua to show them the template of how to do it, in the hope that those territories will now build academies for themselves as well. Well, people, here's the litmus test. We're going to be having this conversation in 5 years, and there's going to be no academies in the rest of the Caribbean. That's going to be the issue. Santokie, let you come in, man.
Yeah, we could have a whole episode with Basil about cricket and everything going on. But Basil, it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on the whole Shimron Hetmyer fiasco. I mean,
what's interesting, I've been critical of Hetmyer, particularly just from a professional perspective, right? Because I have gotten intel about his whole lifestyle and all those things. For me, that's not my business per se. My business is what happens when it comes to cricket, what he's doing on a cricket field, what is he doing to get himself ready, prepared, and all those various things, And I once said, man, if I see Hetmyer, I met Hetmyer once, and it was myself and my brother in Florida when he was, a youngster with the Amazon Warriors when they had their first CPL in Florida. But we never said who we were. We never told him her name, right? Because he was one of the first recipients of my father's foundation as an under 15 cricket gear. Because when my father died, you saw this famous picture of him and Hetmyer shaking hands, and he was one of the first recipients. And I would say this to Hetmyer: if my dad was alive and seeing what you have been doing with your cricket career, he would be so disappointed in you, right? He would, and I know because he know the young man, he would have spoken to him. He would have spoken to him. I mean, a World Cup, man. You are a cricketer, international cricketer. That is the pinnacle of your career, to compete in a World Cup. And whatever reasoning you chose not to go, I mean, it's very disappointing. Very disappointing.
But Basil, it's one thing not to go. Why then play for Berbice and draw everybody's attention to yourself that you haven't played for West Indies, but you're happy to play for Berbice?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question for him to answer. And I guess, from his perspective, he must have felt to show people, you see, I'm committed to playing cricket in the West Indies, so to speak. So here I am going to play for Berbice. I didn't go to the World Cup, so I'm going to play for Burby, so I'm showing my commitment. So that might be, but then on the other hand, his performances, I saw all the games. He made 58 in the first game. And then after then, I don't think he has made double figures, including in the practice match. Right? I had someone send me the scoreboard looking through that practice match, and I was just like, and in a WhatsApp group, that's pretty much all UK based people that I'm in, and I was commenting about this. Somebody saying we got to have a clean slate, remove the coach, remove the captain, etc., etc. And I said, I am not going to defend Pooran, but I find it ridiculous to be blaming coaches for batters' choices in the middle. The coaches are not holding their bats. They're not in the middle. And Stevie Wonder could see when we were playing against Ireland exactly what Ireland wanted our batters to do. And the point about them not being that good is that barring Brandon King, none of our batters were able to counteract or counterattack what Ireland was trying to do for us. That's what a good player does, because you go out there, you see the field set, and the bowler, you will always, you get in your mind right away, this is what the bowler is trying to do to get me out or to keep the runs down. So now I have to look and say, okay, how do I counterattack that to score runs and to put the pressure back on them? Now, if you're not good enough, you're going to play into their hand and get out, because you don't have no options outside of where they prevented you to score. You're going to hit the ball in the air like three of our guys did, right in the trap with Delaney, right? Whereas not to counterattack and go to something else and force them to have to make a change. Ireland had it so easy against our batters. The captain was like, he put out plan A and never had to go to plan B.
Pretty much in a nutshell. Pretty much summed up in a nutshell. Listen, Basil, believe it or not, I warned Santokie. When I said Santokie we're going to do this live, I said Santokie's going to go on for ages. He didn't realize. Because West Indian fans.
It's almost midnight in the UK.
Go on, Santokie, sorry.
Oh, no, go on, Mash, go on.
No, I was just going to say, when West Indian fans talk cricket, listen, this would go on for 6 hours if people allowed me to. This would go on for 6 hours. But Santokie, I'm going to actually let you close everything off.
Yeah, Basil, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast and to meet you. But we've got to get a full episode lined up.
Sure. Let me tell you, it was my friend Colin Benjamin, Info, that put me on to you guys and said to me, it was like about a year or two ago, and he said, these two young guys, Basil, give the best commentary on West Indies cricket around. And I started listening to you guys, and I agreed with him. It was funny, as I listened to you guys, I said, wow, a guy that was in my WhatsApp group said to me, wait, you give these guys talking points? You sound just like them. I said, no, independent minds think alike. Because you guys, what I like, because I'm like that. I'm not going on sentiments. We got data out there. Even if you formulate an opinion, let it be founded on facts, not on sentiments. And unfortunately, many times people are formulating their opinions about West Indies cricket on sentiments rather than on facts. And I hear the hue and cry, and I agree with Mash. I just want to finally say this, that they may remove Phil Simmons, they may remove Pooran as captain and all these things, but we're not going to see no great improvement, because the reality is our players are not good enough. One person that just finished with this, the India bowling attack today, one of the guys in the WhatsApp group, remember what he said? He said if West Indies were playing against India today, we wouldn't have made 50 runs. I tend to agree with him. I don't think we could have survived that burst from that Indian opening and bowling attack, because the wicket was given a little help and so on, right? because you had to bat today early in that thing like it was a test match. The Pakistani guys had to dig in. They had to now revert to how they would play in a red ball game under pressure in that situation to come out of that and then counterattack. That's why today you saw, if you notice today, we didn't see a lot of those funny, all those so-called unorthodox shots on paddles and all of that. We saw pure cricket shots because the game demanded it because of the quality of the bowling.
I think that's to end the show on. If we'd have played India today, we wouldn't have made.
Listen, Basil, Santokie said something though, and I do want to stress that, and I'll get in touch with you about it.
Yes,
because Santokie and I have been talking about how we need to do like a Guyana cricket kind of just a show in and of itself, just about Guyana cricket.
Great.
We may be hitting you up about that because obviously you're going to have tons of stories to tell in that regard.
And you know, just because you said that, just finish with this. It was around the region. If you really look at it, all the different territories, they seem to be just in their little silos around the region, not knowing what's going on in the next country and so on. In Guyana, we had a situation with our cricket in disarray and mismanagement and poor administration. And most of the region didn't even know what was going on in Guyana. Ricky Scarrett himself, until he became president, went on a fact-finding mission to Guyana, was not aware of what was going on in Guyana. And he was sitting at one point in the West Indies board. So we need to have situations where people around the region get an understanding of all that's going on in all the various territories, so we can really understand where West Indies cricket is at.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Listen, Basil, we'll be in touch as always.
All right, man.
We're always talking, but thank you for coming through, man. Much appreciated.
Man. You guys get your sleep. I know it's midnight.
Take care, Basil. Thank you. So, Santokie.
Listen, man. Mash dragged me on for a quick hour show, We're going on past midnight hour.
Listen, I warned you, man. I warned you. 2 hours. You never met, one second, where is it? You never met Mystic. Mystic, apologies, we can't get you on today just because it's reached 2 hour mark. But I do see that comment. I hear what you're saying. I wouldn't call it belittling though, Mystic. I would just say it's realism. They're just average. I think we're ultimately saying, Mystic, that they're just average players who are occasionally good. No more than that. But yeah, Santokie, here, welcome to your first ever 2 hour live, man. This is why we don't do them so often, people, because it takes a lot out of us. But like I said at the top,
we're glad to kind of voice their opinions, get it off their chest. To talk about it, discuss it. I think the main thing is there's a lot of issues that West Indies cricket need to resolve, and there's no short-term fix, Mash. But we're going to end it there, right? We're going to end it there. And if anyone wants to discuss this further, hit us up at Carry Cricket, Instagram, Twitter. We'll be there to engage over the next few days. Obviously, we're not in the World Cup anymore, but Super 50 is about to start, so there'll be a lot of talking points there. But thank you for everyone who joined the live. Share it once it's up on YouTube around, because obviously you can rewatch it. People can rewatch it. People might have not been able to watch it live. Just share it, like, subscribe, spread the word about Carry Cricket movement, and we'll be back soon.
Yeah, and last thing, people, remember tomorrow, look out for our episode on West Indies on 99.94 DM. So there's 2 episodes dropping early next week. Look out for that first one, likely out tomorrow, YouTube and the podcast platform of your choice. But we're out, people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks to all the guests. Thanks for anybody who did a super chat, etc. Before you go, there's 144 of you still in the live. Before you go, if you didn't press like, please press like on your way out and subscribe if you didn't. But we'll be back very, very soon. Peace.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.